Welcome to our community. Susie Thomas with you this morning. So happy to welcome Audra Milbrandt. She is from Absolute Home Health and Hospice. Good morning.
Good morning, Susie.
We say hospice, and I think we all have our own reaction, physical reaction to that word. First of all, let's talk about what you do and what is provided by hospice.
Well, most people actually cringe when they hear the word hospice, and we are changing the face of that, all hospices. It doesn't mean that we think that your loved one is dying tomorrow. It means that they have an end-stage diagnosis that we know sending them back and forth to the hospital is not really doing them any good anymore.
Right.
So we're all in agreement that we want to keep them comfortable, out of pain, and give them a lot of extra attention during these last 6 months.
But at the time, you are kind of looking at end of life.
Yes, we are.
Do people talk about that freely?
No,
Okay.
Not at all. And usually it's a very taboo subject. But once people hear the benefits and they actually see it in action, they are overjoyed by what their loved ones are receiving.
I've been so amazed by people who work, first of all, in this field. You have a special gift, and I hope you know that. It is a calling. How difficult to be working with people at that stage of their life. How do you do it? How do you cope?
It's actually it's really a privilege for me. When you see someone actually die well, it is life fulfilling.
Okay, what is dying well?
Dying well. That means that they're not in pain. They've got to see all their family, friends. They're surrounded by their loved ones, and they die very peacefully. That's dying well.
I think, do you find that if people have a confidence in what's next, almost like a looking forward to what's next, that it makes a difference?
Sure does. And everyone is scared because we don't know. But there is a true sense of peace and serenity when someone dies well.
I remember when it was my mom's last day, and hospice she was in a nursing home, but the hospice people were visiting her there and meeting with her there. The last day, she was watching football with us. We were listening to big band music, reading from a funny book. If I had known that was her last day, I would have been way more on my game. We would have had scripture. We would have been singing hymns. We would have been doing it right, giving her a big send-off, but we were being silly instead. And the hospice people brought in food, a rack of trays of all kinds of wonderful food, and said, "Oh, this room doesn't seem sad at all," and then left. And I thought, well, isn't that unique? They've never brought us food before. How did they know? They must have known. Is there something that you work with people at that stage of life enough that you've got an inkling that we're there?
Well, there's all different types of signs that death is close.
Imminent.
Yes. But it doesn't always go that way. If we all had that crystal ball, boy, we'd be millionaires. But truly, sometimes we like to refer to that as someone's last hurrah. That's exactly how they wanted their last day to look. So it's all by the person and the family. And that's probably what your mom wanted, just to laugh and be silly and have a good time.
Have her family around her.
And that's what everybody wants.
Exactly how it went. Everybody was surprised to find out that she went home to be with the Lord at the end of that day. They were like, "I just saw her." So it is like a last hurrah, as you're saying.
It truly is.
What do you offer? What does Absolute Home Health and Hospice offer in way of services?
So with the hospice benefit, every patient is assigned a nurse, a state-tested nursing assistant, a chaplain, if the patient and family so desire, a social worker, and a physician. And the entire team works together to make sure that that patient has everything they need.
Are they working with family members as well? Are
Correct.
they communicating primarily with the patient?
It depends on where that patient is. If they're able to communicate, then it's patient first, and then family kind of comes next. If we don't understand or we need to clarify what the patient needs. But those things are all provided under the hospice benefit at no cost to the patient or family.
Let's start that all over again. How does that work?
Hospice is a Medicare benefit. Anyone, and it doesn't matter if they currently have some kind of Medicare replacement policy.
Okay.
Those things do not matter. The hospice benefit always goes back to traditional Medicare, and it's completely 100% covered under the benefit.
So these services are provided at no cost to the patient or their family.
Correct.
We just want to make sure that that point is driven home.
Yes.
And are there things that when you meet with the family, first of all, how does a family know it's time to meet with hospice? And then are there questions you should ask when you meet with hospice? Because none of us knows what we don't know. And this is the first time anybody's going through some of this many times, and you don't know even what to ask. What should we?
So where I always begin a conversation is asking the family what questions they have for me, because most families are scared and they don't know what to expect. So I like to start with their questions first. Anyone can ask for a hospice consult, from a physician to a nurse to a nursing home, assisted living, a family member. It doesn't have to come from the doctor to start with. With that said, the doctor has to be in agreement that the prognosis is most likely 6 months or less. Does that mean that within that 6 months, if your loved one doesn't pass away, that they get kicked off? Absolutely not. That just means that we don't know everything. We've had patients on service for years that still qualify for the benefit.
I've heard of people graduating out of hospice.
It does happen. It really does. And it's a strange thing to hear. But sometimes we see when we take away that anxiety of always trying to get better, and we just focus on the patient and what they want, they actually do better. And sometimes they'll graduate off hospice
It's
for
just
a while.
amazing. But to face something with the idea that I'm just trying to alleviate pain, I'm not getting better. How does a person, as you work with people at this time, how do they come to grips with that? We all know our bodies are going to give out at some point.
Right.
They're not made to last forever, not the body. And how does a person come to grips with the fact that it might be shutting down?
Well, and that's it. That's a hard question because most patients know that they're dying, but they don't want to tell their loved ones. So it's up to us to support the dying patient versus trying to force them to get better. So that's a huge piece of what hospice does, that we take away that we've got to make you better and we've got to do X, Y, and Z. So, and it's very trying for patients to go back and forth to a hospital all the time and not get any better results.
Right. So they might welcome this idea, the freedom of, I don't have to impress everyone by getting better.
Exactly. And I don't have to go and do exercises for 90 minutes per day, or I don't have to eat that if I don't want to, or I can have different foods that I wasn't allowed to have before.
Let's go there.
Oh, boy.
You know, I think a lot of people, I can remember when my father-in-law was passing and, you know, all of the daughters are nurses, so they were making sure he had a certain number of fluids every day. He did not want it.
Yes.
If a person is at end of life, you know it, they know it. Can they just load up on chocolate and fun things?
Of course. Anything they absolutely want. We tell them, if you want chocolate for 3 meals a day, absolutely. Ice cream is huge. Everybody wants ice cream. But if they don't want anything, they don't have to have that either.
Yeah. If eating just is not enjoyable at all, just let it go. So providential that you're here on this particular day. A dear, dear close friend of mine just passed. And as we were getting together once a week to just watch old movies, she did not want to talk about anything having to do with illness at all. Conversations were only about grandchildren and fun things and what are you looking forward to next and making plans, continuing to make plans. Is that a healthy way to go?
Absolutely. One of the best things to do is not talk about the upcoming if they don't want to. One of the best things to talk about is their favorite memories because there might be things you forgot or people that have already passed away that they're remembering. Whatever makes them happy for that day is where we need to go.
You get to a point where you have more people on the other side of this
Yes.
than are currently living in this world, and you do kind of look forward to, wow, think of who I'm going to see again. That almost seems exciting. And is that morbid to go there?
Oh, absolutely not. Absolutely not. We just had a situation with my aunt about this time last year. And I bent over her ear and I said, hey, tell my mom I miss her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Have you been with patients as they pass, and do you talk about dying well? Have you seen some very inspirational moments that really give us a glimpse on what's on the other side of that very thin veil?
Oh, geez, there are so many stories. But what I can tell you is I've been with numerous patients that have passed in my presence, and I have been very fortunate to be able to hold their hands, talk to them. Not all of them could respond, but I always tell families hearing is the last thing to go. So always talk out loud and say what you need to say.
That's very important to know, particularly if someone's not responsive.
Yes.
But that they are hearing, because you hope they are, as you're singing those hymns and praying them off to a great reception on the other side. Yeah. You said there are lots of stories. Has one impacted you personally, maybe more than others, that you were with someone and you thought, wow, that gives me hope?
One of my favorite stories, a dear friend of mine, her husband passed away a few years ago, and I had been out of town. So I had to kind of get everything set up while I was gone, and he was not doing well at all. And she had called me. I said, we just got out of church. I'm on my way. Let's see what we can do. Because it was almost like he was waiting for something. And I got there. The three of us held hands together, and he passed. And her and I giggled and giggled, saying that he was waiting for his second wife to come hold his other hand so he could go, because he hadn't seen me yet. And it was just a cute.
Yeah. Those moments do give us hope, don't they?
Yes, they do. Absolutely.
I'll tell a quick story. My mother was, at the end of that day, she reached up as if she was hugging someone, and she said, okay, I'm all set. And off she went. It was remarkable.
Oh, there's many stories like that.
Yeah. Very, very cool. We are speaking with Audra Milbrandt. She is, what is your position there?
I am the Regional Director of Market Development
for Absolute Home Health and Hospice. And we'll be speaking with her more on the other side of this break. Stay with us. You're listening to Our Community.